Oh, hey, good morning.
Good
Kevin, how the
morning.
are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Oh, we are rocking and rolling. Hey, Donald,
Good.
nice to see you. And
And
what do
we're
we
we're
got?
right where we're supposed to be. Mark got the roar in right in time.
Yeah, that's we're off for a good day when that happens. It's good to see you, Man, and Cody, and Arginus as well, and everybody in the chat. Good to see you.
Always
We're
good because
true.
you know it's Friday. You know the weekend's coming. I hear it's sunny in Spain and Barcelona.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How's the weather down by you in Texas?
So actually, when you had that conversation there, I was started looking because I'm like, I think it's supposed to get warm again today. The forecast is for at least 75. I thought somebody said higher 70s. So we're always in this little roller coaster here. And so I think it'll be 70s today. Probably have to turn the air conditioning back on, and it goes back down into the 50s tomorrow. So it's
Oh,
always strange.
oh, that's yeah. We hit a real cold spell where it was like in the teens and it was just bitter cold
Hmm.
out, and now it's like in the 40s. So, but we're going to be talking about DAX queries. Is that right, Kevin?
Yeah. So this is something we've tried to talk about the last couple shows, and
Hmm.
when it first came out, and I tried to do an ad hoc presentation, I couldn't get anything working. And then we just kind of stumbled upon it, I think last week or whatever. And so I said, well, let's go a little bit deeper and actually try to show it. So I got prepared this time, not very well prepared because I want to make sure I have mistakes. But makes it fun, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We can't
No,
not have mistakes, right? Like that's crazy, right?
but I think I could do a pretty decent job. There's been a lot more information out about it. I see you just posted the article from Zoe. Zoe, I think she was the PM on this.
Yep.
So she's been putting a lot of things out about it. It's a great job. Patrick from Guy in a Cube just did a video this week on it as well. So a 7-minute video. So we'll talk a little bit more, I think, on than the 7 minutes on it. But we'll go a little bit deeper and hopefully people will have some questions to help guide us.
Yeah, yep, yep. And as always, we are here to have a conversation on data. So we are following Guy in the Cube rules, or Matthew Roche rules. Please prefix every question with a Q so we can get them queued up for you. And then don't spam or repeat questions. That'll get you blocked by any of our wonderful moderators.
Yeah. Well, before we jump straight into the DAX query, I heard you
Mhm.
had a live stream I missed on Wednesday that was pretty good, talking about capacities.
Yeah, actually,
So-
yes. And I learned some new things inside that live stream. So please do go back and watch the live stream on capacities. There is news. Well, technically, it's old stuff, but there's
Mhm.
new to me, or as far as I know, new to the public's knowledge on capacities, how they work,
Mm.
how they perform, why they work so good most of the time, but every once in a while you have issues. Um, like it honestly, it cleared up a whole bunch of things for me. So
Okay,
do check
cool.
that out. It is very good. And I'll say if you're gonna like watch and you're like not gonna watch like the whole thing, start at the 30-minute mark. I know probably not the great thing for the YouTuber to say. Uh, um,
Watch the whole thing. Just watch the first half on double speed.
yes, there you go. Yeah, yeah. It wasn't exactly at the 30-minute mark, but at one point in time, like all of a sudden, a flood of questions came in, and they were fantastic questions, and that allowed us to go real deep into some stuff. So do check that out.
So did
Um,
did y'all cover turning the capacity on and off through an automation technique?
no, we talked about some of the new technology that occurred in Gen 2
Mm.
uh, that honestly I didn't realize that's how it functioned and worked, but they're now starting to. And I guess the reality was it was always in there, but they were changing it and evolving it how it worked. They were experimenting with like like how it functioned, right? And they didn't want to say exactly how it functioned until they had it kind of locked down so that people weren't like causing, having issues, right? Because once
Yeah.
you document it and say it, you've created an SLA for yourself. So.
Right. Well, I'll have to definitely go back and watch it. But yeah, one of the things I stumbled on this last week or so is how to automate turning a capacity off, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we've kind of talked about the cost of a capacity, running it all the time, and now reserve instances have been announced. I don't know that I've seen how to set up a reserve instance yet,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the things that I have with the solution is we're only excuse me, we're only running it like once a day, and then once I refresh the data set, I actually put that over on a pro workspace. So we don't need the capacity running the entire time. And
Sure.
so I started looking for a way to turn that capacity off because I think that's a huge benefit for the FSKUs, right? Being able to pause and resume. And by reading a couple comments in the LinkedIn post, I ran across Richard's post here. And Richard, what I kind of like about this, he starts off every blog post like almost, well, this one, the way I start off almost every one if I ever blog post again. It's been a while. It's been a long time. I tend not to get back to my blogs. But anyways, this article goes through the exact steps you need. You do have to know a little bit about the Azure automation account, but it's pretty simple when you get up into the Azure portal to turn
Mm-hmm.
on an automation account, go through the clicks to just set it up. And you set up what's called the managed identity in there. And it just is a little window that'll pop up and tell you that you have a managed identity.
Okay.
You grant that managed identity contributor access to your
Mm-hmm.
FSKU. And then here's all the code. It's PowerShell code that you just add as a runbook,
Okay.
and you give it the parameters. Here he lays out the parameters that you would need. Um, and you can see you could tell it for the method is either resume or suspend. Set up a schedule, and you're off to the races. He's got another one that I haven't tried for resizing the capacity. So if you want to try to figure out do you need to dynamically size it for some reason to move it up and down to handle some workload, you could automate that as well. But this is a great little way to help you manage your capacity. So I wanted to share this with everybody today.
Yeah. This is wonderful. And yeah, pausing, resuming.
Hmm.
Oh, does it have? It has resize. Can you? This is one thing I have not tested. Can you resize the capacity while workloads are running on it without impacting the workloads?
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
Let's see if he mentions it in his comments at all.
Resizing.
No. If we look at his code, I don't know if he checks to see if it's. No, I mean it's just very. This set of the code is just very simple. It's just going to be calling this REST method and passing the information. So it doesn't have to. It's not doing anything to check if it's busy. It's a good question. I don't know what happens if the capacity is busy or the workload that's running at that time.
Okay. Well, that is good to know, right? Like, you know, uh, it's good to know that like we don't know necessarily
Yeah.
how that's going to work, right?
Yeah, something to test, but yeah, something to figure out. So my use cases, I really needed to just resume and suspend because I'm using an F2 for this client anyways. And like I said, we're only using it for a small chunk of the day. We're talking about doing it a couple more times a day, but right
Okay.
now, just as we're getting going, it's once a day. And I'm like, well, then why are we leaving this thing running the whole time? We're going to
Right.
move to reserve instance to save money. I said, well, I think I could save even more money doing this. So.
Yeah.
Um,
Just on that mode alone, right? So.
yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, so if anybody needs to do it, there's your post. Thank Richard on he is on LinkedIn. I thanked him on an article that I saw and he responded right away. I don't know that he's extremely active, but was glad that he was able to put something out.
So that is that. I mean, honestly, that's awesome, right? So I'm just going to quick share what we learned about capacities on Wednesday that may make you change your mind about what you're doing, about pausing. All right. Now, this is something I'm not. Oh my gosh, I'm not ready for this. I don't have my screen share. Entire screen. Just throwing this together here. Now, oh, I didn't set my animation right, but we'll get it in there. It'll be fine. It will be fine. So, transitions, morph. Okay. All right. So where am I? Ah,
Directly above the center of the earth. It's where you
yes,
always
yes,
are.
yes. This is awkward. Sorry, everyone. We are running and gunning here, always,
Excuse me.
share screen, share entire screen. This screen. Oops, that's wrong. There we go. Share. All right. So let me flip this. Turn you off. Let's flip on mine. Now, this is what we learned about bursting. Okay. So when you hit capacity, and I literally just threw this together. So this is crude in how this works, but this is how bursting and smoothing works. When your capacity is running and things are kicking off, and you hit your cap in what your capacity has available in CUs, Power BI Gen 2 does not pause or hotel or stop any of the processes like it used to in Gen 1. What ends up happening is it allows for bursting capabilities so that those processes can continue to run. Okay. What happens though is once those are done, they're going to smooth out the cost of those bursts over the course of the next 24 hours. So you're going to see those fill in as you go along, right? So whatever you went over will get smoothed out over the course of those 24 hours. Now, the big gotcha here is if you're using an pay-as-you-go service and you turn it off, let's say you pause it at, you pause it right when you're done with your loads of things, like, you pause it right here. All of this future compute will be applied here, and you'll still pay for that whole run, that whole time it takes to pay off whatever your burst is. So if you're using, let's say you're using your FSKU, your pay as you go for 8 hours, and then you pause it, but you're still using the compute of 24, or you're using the compute of, let's say, 36 hours. Well, no, it'll only allow you to do 24. If you're using that compute, you'll still end up paying for it. So there can be some cost savings, but you may end up actually realizing that that 41% cost savings may be more beneficial for you than pausing, because 41% means you have to only run for 14 hours a day, right? 14 hours a day, and then it's, you might as well have a reserve capacity. So there's a lower threshold there.
Yeah, so there's a couple questions in the chat that I think apply right to what you're talking about here, right? So the first one with Cody, right?
Okay.
How does pausing save money? I thought it only charges for what's used, and smoothing, right? So you just kind of covered what smoothing is, right? Smoothing is when you go over your capacity's limit, right? If you're constantly running and you're always under, then, obviously smoothing doesn't apply. But at the same point is if the capacity is up and you have absolutely no workload going, which there's always kind of a little bit of a workload, because if you set up a lake house, a warehouse, or even if you set up a data flow Gen 2, which sets up its own staging, you will see the capacity as soon as it's turned on, it will be taking CUs. And you could have no other workload. You don't have to run your own notebooks or anything else, and you will see your capacity app have tick marks all the way across. So as long as the capacity is up, you're paying for it, right? if you're not running anything on your own workload, you don't need to access those files, right? And maybe you'll go deeper into this. It was an earlier kind of question. What I'm doing in this solution is because everybody else has Pro and it's a very small setup. I do all the data engineering inside Fabric, get it all done, and then use the SQL endpoint to refresh a data set. And now at that point, that data set's in a Pro workspace and I'm off of the Fabric capacity. So that's why it enables me to turn it off, because I'm not using the direct lake mode. It's very small data, so that there's a reason for that.
Yep.
And then
And
the
so
other question,
that's pretty smart there.
yeah, and that, because the goal is they're a very, very small company, right? Try to bring the cost down. They were fine with the cost, because I told them the high cost of what was announced that we knew and everything. But the more I could save them, why not, right? So,
Right.
and then I see you just put up Jack's question.
Mm-hmm.
So does it make sense if you have a reserved instance, or does pausing a reserve instance make sense? You're agreeing to a fixed price. My understanding, Jack, is the way you phrased your question is true. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think, because you're already saying that because you're agreeing to that price. You're pretty much paying for it up front. So even if you
Actually,
pause it, you're going to pay it.
you can't pause
Oh, that.
a reserve instance. So I don't believe there's any mechanism to pause it. Because it's reserved, it's held for you. That's your capacity.
Yeah.
And
I
like
don't.
Kevin says, it doesn't make any sense because you're going to pay for it either way. So
Have you seen
uh,
even how you set up a reserve instance yet? I looked once and I didn't see it. I haven't looked again in a couple of weeks.
I have not. The last time I set up a capacity was right after preview, and honestly, I've been running that F2 since. And
Yeah.
I mean that whatever the price is, it's low enough that
Mm-hmm.
it's not a concern. And that's a great question. And Cody has a follow up question here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is no other workload running? I'm inferring you are splitting your data workloads into its own capacity and then report access in another capacity. And
Correct. Yeah, the report access goes right. So the report connects to the semantic model that we used to call data set.
mhm,
And the data set could live in the Pro workspace. So that is the shared capacity.
yep,
And so, yes, there's the data engineering part that is bringing in data from external systems, combining it all together, get all those processes run, puts it into, you could go into a lake house or you could go into a warehouse. You have a SQL endpoint
mhm,
to the Power BI import semantic model. Doesn't know that SQL endpoint lives on a Azure SQL server, anywhere else. It doesn't matter, right?
yep,
It just reads as it is SQL. It imports the data. Now that until I do another refresh of that data set, I don't have to have the capacity up.
right. So that means you can't use direct lake in that situation, right?
Correct. If you're trying to use things like Direct Lake or whatever, yeah, that's not going to work. But you know,
Yeah, you're going to
it,
have a bad time. Right.
again, I want to say this semantic model. I mean, the amount of data that this company has, it fits inside a semantic model in the megs, like a hand, like I think it's 1 or 2 meg at the
Yeah.
end of it right now, right? I mean, yeah, they plan on growing and everything, but you know, there's not a reason, why not continue to use things like, the Pro capacity if that meets your needs. I think they have 20 users altogether, right? I
Hmm.
mean, so we don't need to take them to a premium per user, because for the Git integration and everything, that all works on the Fabric capacity. Um,
Hmm.
I handle all of that type of stuff. So, just doing the reports, their team is doing the reports themselves. We set them up a workspace, taught them how to use an app. So in a way that kind of gives them a way, they first publish the report to the workspace, but then they don't make it live until they do the update of the app. So that gives them another testing point. So it all still works great.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is that frankly that is just awesome. So
Hmm.
and like well, by pausing it, you're using an F2, right?
Correct.
So what is your price if you have a tightly tuned pausing for that F2 and you're managing appropriately? How much are you spending a month roughly?
Yeah. So for some reason they made a change to my account and I can't see their billing
Ah,
data anymore. Um,
okay.
but I'm in my head when I kind of talk to them and everything, because right now what I'm doing is just as I'm trying to get my process down, I think I bring up the capacity for 3 hours a night. Um, I suspect that over the entire month, this is going to be less than $50 a month for them running
Wow,
this solution.
that is fantastic.
So
That's just
just
amazing.
something that I put some quick, you know, napkin math together. It
Hmm.
might even be less than that. I was hoping to kind of see it as it goes up, but yeah, I think you could get to be extremely, you know, very cost effective by doing this type of thing. So,
All right, so we've got a question for you. Now that we've explained this, we've been through this. We want to like take a little pulse survey of the people who are watching this live, or if you're watching this on replay, because I know we get like actually like 10x the number of views on replay. Leave a comment down below if this now makes sense to you as what bursting and smoothing is, why you'd want to pause a capacity, what the implications are, and let us know if you understand bursting and smoothing and the whole pausing capacity. So that would be
mhm.
fantastic. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, and
and then
if we get enough comments or whatever that people still need more, we could do it in a whole nother episode. So go
yep,
even
yep.
deeper.
And I'm going to also post this. Submit your ideas. One of the things that I would like to see is in order for people to easily resolve bursting like charges, have a pay now button that fabric capacities are already attached to an Azure account. Have a pay now to like eliminate whatever the smoothing charges are, so that if you have other workloads that you're having problems running because bursting has occurred, you could easily pay that off. So I would love to see that. If you think that makes a great idea to make it easy for you to manage your capacities and resolve issues, please submit out on ideas.fabric.microsoft.com. So, awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, but we've been talking quite a bit about not the topic of the show.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry, we got distracted as always.
yeah,
Squirrels.
yeah. Squirrel. I gotta get an animation for that. All right, we're talking DAX, writing DAX queries, right?
Writing DAX queries. Wow. So this is such a wonderful feature, but I could just say that and we could be done with it. But maybe we should go into why it's such a wonderful feature. But
Yeah.
I know you posted this article. I'm not going to really scroll through this a whole lot, but definitely come in and read Zoe's article. But the
Hmm.
first question that I would have for people, right, is because the word DAX is there, do we really understand the difference between a DAX measure and a DAX query? Because they are two different things, even though they're using the same language. So that's always the first thing that I want to kind of clear up. So, Chris, I'm sure you know the difference, right? The measure, that's what we're typically, that when everybody is talking DAX, I assume they're talking first, they're writing a DAX measure because that's what we've been doing in Power BI forever and a day, right?
Hmm.
And we try to figure out this measure to return one and only one value, right? And
Hmm.
say, this is where we get into all the context transition, right? Is it row filtering? Is it, anything else? What would the transition occur? All of those type of things. Where DAX queries are really totally different. So DAX queries will always return a table 100%
Correct.
of the time. And that's the main thing we got to kind of think about when we're writing a DAX query. So
Right.
I equated
This
DAX.
is what this is what is happening when you create a visual. This is the query that
Mhm.
executes against the model, so that you can actually see that and see what's performing or not performing. Right.
Exactly. The query itself is written by Power BI. And I see Alex just put a statement out there, and I love that statement because that's how I think of it too. Is I didn't understand DAX, or even as I didn't understand DAX measures as well as I do now until I started writing DAX queries. And once I started trying to write DAX queries, I started the measure part of it started coming better to light to me, right? Better in my brain. It's just the way it works. Plus, I was able to easily transfer it over from things like SQL to what the DAX query does.
Yep.
And the way I learned a whole lot is, like you said, is the Power BI tool will write the queries for you. You could get them, and we'll go through it here in just a second. And then you start reading those queries and start deconstructing it, reverse engineering it, and rebuilding it yourself. You will understand DAX measures a whole lot better if you can learn how to write DAX queries.
Yep.
So, and I think there's a couple different functions to focus on if you're writing a DAX query versus writing a DAX measure, and we'll touch on that as we kind of go through some of this. So, okay, so let's go back to my screen. I'll bring up my Power BI. Okay, so inside Power BI, you see we now have a new pane, window pane, or whatever you want to call that, for DAX. Now you do have to go into, and we've showed people a million times how to go into options, preview settings. You need to go turn this on in the preview settings. You're going to have to restart your Power BI desktop if you're turning it on for the first time, and then it will show up. Now, it will also only show up when you have a local model. So if you're doing a live connection, and I'll bring up another Power BI towards the end of this, and we'll show how to get around this. But if you're doing a live connected to a semantic model that lives up in the service, you won't see that button. So it is going to have to be something that is you have a local model for. Okay. So on this, I just have a Power BI desktop that is connected or brings in the Contoso data, brings it in to the local model. And if we click on Query View, by default, this is the first query you're going to see. It generates this query one that's down here below. And
can you magnify your desktop?
Yeah. So one of the things
Use
you could
the like plus sign. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I was just going to actually say that. One of the things you could do, I'm using Control and then my scroll button on my mouse, and that allows you to increase the size of your query. So old people, or when you're doing a live stream, you're able to kind of zoom in on it. So this
For the
gives
old
you,
people.
yeah, I'm the old, I could say that for sure. So
Yeah.
So it gives you a link to go to, right? And I think that's to this article that we already shared. It gives you a very first example. And if you're new to queries, you're going to first see this evaluate. And you probably haven't seen this before unless you get into things like DAX Studio, Tabular Editor, actually Tabular Editor 3 that lets you write queries and everything. But evaluate is, I've been trying to think, like, is it really your select? Is it really your, like, if you think of from SQL executing a stored procedure, you got to give the execute command usually, right? It's that type of command. It's just saying, hey, what follows from here is going to be a query. And it's expected to return a table. Okay, so in this case, it gives you an example. And this is probably one of the good functions to learn when writing queries is top N to help you explore your data, right? So you give top N, and then you give a value that's a number that says the number of rows. For the table customer, so it just picked customer from the list. I don't know if it just did it randomly, the first dimension that it kind of hit. And if I do run, you'll see it gives me a set of results down below. So it's it's 100 rows from the customer table. So that's great, right? It's a good way to kind of get started. But what else can you do? Well, one of the things you want to go through all up here is what's on your command line or your window, your pane here. I'm losing words today. So you can format it, because what do the Italians say? No DAX code is good DAX code until it's formatted.
Really? They say that? Or
I
did you
think they say it, or I'm putting it in their mouth, but I've heard it a few times now, right? But
Okay.
anytime that you want help from them or whatever, they'll tell you, please format your DAX code if you're putting it out on social media or somewhere. So yeah, and Donald agrees with me. Yes, they do say that.
Okay. All right.
So sorry, I seem to have to get rid of this cough again this morning. Friggin' winter. Okay, so the other thing you could do is you could select outlines and you could comment, or you could uncomment. Now, there are keyboard shortcuts for this as well. So the normal Control KC will comment, Control KU, which, obviously you could see my keyboard activity there. Does the same thing. And if you're wondering what the commands are, right, it has what the command palette is. So you could sit there and think and find out all your keyboard shortcuts for those that love to keep their hands on the keyboard. If you ever had anybody
Oh,
play a
that's
game,
cool. Zoom in on that. That's neat. Can you zoom in on that?
well, I have to use Zoom it, I think. Let me
Yeah.
find,
Yep.
but like this.
Look at that. I had no idea. Copy line down, shift alt down arrow. Really? Copy line
Yeah.
up. That's cool.
Yeah. So have you ever had people play a game where they would like challenge each other to see how much they could do without taking their hands off the keyboards?
I have never played that game in my entire
I
life.
haven't played, but I was in an office one
Right.
time where these two guys, like, they would compete. They're writing code and they would compete with each other. Like, okay, go. How long can we go without taking our hands off the keyboard and be productive?
Oh my
It was the
gosh.
weirdest
I
thing.
always thought I was a pretty big nerd, but right there, that wow, that one. Congrats, guys.
All right, squirrel.
Oh, sorry, Kevin.
It's all right. It's all right. So, all right.
Uh,
So let's kind of go back. How else can you get, we haven't written any DAX yet. So let's kind of see another way we could kind of get started to write something without DAX. And I'm just gonna pick a card visual. And this is the part I haven't rehearsed, so I have no clue what's gonna happen here. And I'm gonna say I want a measure to go in there. I'm gonna put a measure that is my total net price. So we've talked before about you could use Performance Analyzer to see the DAX code that is written for this. So I'm going to start recording. I'm going to refresh visuals. And of course, you could just refresh this one. Expand our card visual. And you could copy query. Or now, and this is sweet, you could just click on this line that says Run in DAX Query View. So
dang, is that awesome?
I kind of mentioned Tabular Editor and DAX Studio. One of the questions I keep hearing people ask is, does this replace those tools? And the answer is definitely not. But I think it's going to reduce the amount of time you need to go out to those type of tools. And so for DAX Studio, right, what I used to do a whole lot here is copy the query, paste it into DAX Studio, and then I'd be working with what I had and kind of mess around with it, which is still a valid use case when you're trying to evaluate performance. This DAX query part in desktop doesn't give you all the performance indicators, like how much time is spent in the storage engine versus the formula engine. It just is going to tell you the amount of time that it ran for. To get the details and do the tracing, you still need to go to DAX Studio. And then Tabular Editor has its own use case for editing the model quickly, especially with C# script. So you won't have to use that if you go to DAX, if you do DAX queries as often. But those tools still have their need, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and click on this. And what you see is, again, it gives us what the query looks like, gives us the results down at the bottom. So it's that same result that we had up on the card visual. And this is exactly what Power BI sends off and gets back for when it's rendering that visual for you. So
interesting.
Let's kind of break this down a little bit. Remember, under evaluate, it always has to return a table object. So this function row, and you see here, this was a nice thing. If I hover over the function, it gives me at least an idea. It gives me what the function parameters are, gives me the short description of what's going on with it. So this is going to take the measure sales or total net price and off of the sales table and turn it into a single row, single column table. This is the other nice thing right here. I just hovered over that measure, and now it is showing me what the measure code looks like. So it's simply the sum of net price. Okay. So another thing I could do. I thought I could do it right from here. Oh, there it is. I have this little, let me zoom in on that. So I get this little light bulb over here that pops up when I was on the measure. So now if I click that, I have more actions I could do, which one of them is going to be define. So now you see I just clicked on define and it brought my measure code into this DAX query that I'm using. Where this is helpful is if I have a measure that I'm working on and I think it has a bug or I think I need to change it a little bit, I could do it right here without impacting the model yet, the semantic model, because whatever measure is created in the define section overrides is that one's taken first in the order, right? So if you don't have it in your define section, it's going to get it from the semantic model. But if it's in the define section, then it's going to use that definition of the measure versus what's in the model. So let's kind of do this, right? Is we're going to multiply this by 0.5.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And actually, we can't do it in a sum, right? We have to do that in a sum x. So we'll say sum x sales. And now we have our valid expression, right? Which is going to be our net price column off of the sales table times 0.5. So if this is 219, we're going to expect it to come about half of that. So now if I run this, you see I get 109, somewhere around half, right? It seems like it worked. So but if I comment this out, oh, I don't have anything in the define. Let me comment out the define section as well.
Right? What was that hotkey you hit for doing that?
Control KC.
Control KC?
Control K and then C.
Okay, sorry.
Yep. So now if I run this again, right, I'm back to my 219 because it took the definition back from the model.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, so it shows I could test things, and then KU is what uncommented. So I could test things and explore changes that I might want to make prior to making it in the model, which is what I used to do over in DAX Studio or Tabular Editor a lot, right? If I had something over there. But why this is so much nicer, you see this section here. So it's grayed down a little bit to kind of show you, hey, this isn't code that you have within your query. This is another prompt that they're giving to you that the measure that you have here is different than the measure that's in your model. If you're happy with it, you could simply click on that update model overwrite measure and your model will be updated. So you don't have to sit there and cut and paste and go, oh, well, I didn't get it all or whatever. It's going to just change it. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to get this dialog that tells me, are you sure? Because this cannot be undone. And I'm going to say, sure, why not? And if we come over here, I don't think we'll see. We come back to our page here, click on total price. You can see now that it's been updated.
Wow.
It's just that simple, right? And then obviously if I press save, I'm good.
That is awesome. And again, all you did was click on that update measure and model and they applied it, right?
Right. And now you see once I clicked and the screen refreshed, that update went away.
God, that is super cool. Aaron is 100% correct. That is super cool.
Yeah. So now let's bring it all the way back to what it was because I can remember that very easily. Right.
Right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right now. But that could be something too. If you think about it, since you have these DAX queries, you could define that measure, comment it out, and then redefine it. So you have the original syntax, right? And maybe even a change history that you could keep in here. Because when you save the model, these DAX queries are saved with it.
Inclusive of the comments, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Where we could even, so let me do that. And then we'll define it again. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if I save this model.
Wait, are you sure that's going to work that way? Yeah, update the model. Because you're defining the measure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if I say update, are we talking comments of the measure?
Yeah.
I believe right now those are being overlaid. Okay. It's something that I saw somewhere, I think on Twitter or whatever, but I believe that
Look, we can see it right now, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So let's
inside the measure itself, put in the comment. Go back. It's not going to be there
now. Oh.
So because you have defined and then your measure is there, take that comment and put it after your definition.
Gotcha.
Right? Like in that same line or something like that.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, take that.
Okay.
Yep.
So now I got to change this again. So let me change this back to
+1. Yeah.
Yeah, at the end of it. And we say overwrite. This can't be undone. Come over here. No, it didn't put that comment in there.
Yeah.
And so what I was thinking was the description. So the description is not being overwritten. But the comments underneath the defined measure, and maybe that's something we could report back. I don't know if that was explicitly what is being talked about that they're working on.
No, but I think so. Cody's point was it'd be great if we could leave a note as to why we were multiplying it by 0.5, right?
Yeah.
Why are we doing that?
Enterprise AR. Ooh, Kevin is back to live demos. Yes. And I said at the start of all this, I didn't totally. I only made sure the setup worked. I didn't practice so I could have mistakes, because I know we all love how I can make mistakes during live demos.
Yeah.
But that's I think that's good feedback, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if we could see if that's on the ideas site, but if the comments are within the measure definition itself, that those would get put back over. I think that would be a great thing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I said that'd be great if we could include that.
Yeah.
From LinkedIn, Sergio Cook has a question. He says, "Hi there, thanks for the great live stream. How can this help us debug context transition situations?"
Well, so that's a great question. Here's where I think it could help you is when you're writing your DAX query. So let's go ahead and start a brand new one. And what I'm going to start off with is I'm not going to have a define section. I'm just going to do evaluate. See if I could on the fly come up with an answer. So here's one of the functions that I think you need to learn. Probably one of the first ones, and you're going to see this written in a lot of queries that Power BI puts build for you when it's building a visual. It's summarize columns. It uses this a whole lot, right? So I'm going to say summarize columns, and the same type of thing. I'm going to bring my I'll call it total sales. Wow, my cap box is on. Total sales. And the measure I'm going to bring in is just going to be this total net price. Okay. So this is my valid DAX query. I know it's valid because I always format my queries. And by them formatting, I know the syntax is correct. So when I run this, again, it just brings back that same value we've seen before, the 219. So now as we kind of get into what's happening with context transition filtering or whatever, right? I could have that start happening because now I'm going to bring a column in here. And one thing, this is other feedback I think we could give to them is what I would like is if I could drag and drop, and it almost implies that I could because you see that cursor part comes up.
Yeah.
But it doesn't go there.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm a little disappointed in that, but I'm going to pick product, color. Okay, so now here is our syntax for summarized columns. So we could specify group by column names and one or many of those, right? Optionally produce a filter table and then have a name and the expression in order to have something calculated. So this is our group by column. I don't have any filtering table, so no other filters going to occur here. I renamed total net price to be this @ total sales. So now when I run this, you see I have each color and what the sales by color. So in a way so that is, right, context transition happening because this measure is being calculated within the context of the color. And so I could add even more group by columns here and everything. And this is the one where I first started kind of thinking about it, going, oh, this kind of helped me once I put a table together and I could say, hey, go back to my sales table and filter by silver. Do I get this value? Right? Because that's kind of what's happening, and I could check it one at a time. Hopefully that kind of helped answer that part of the question. This is how I think it helps you learn how to do DAX, because when you learn these type of queries, to me, you start understanding the filtering and everything that's happening. The next part of it, go ahead.
And it's so this maybe it looks confusing for someone to come in and write this. But remember, we could create a visual in the Power BI report site, and then we can look at the query that's generated by that visual, and that's a great starting off point for us. So yeah, turn that over to a matrix or whatever, right? And then drag something in, and then we could go right over there and check that out, right?
Yeah, so this is what the result we had over on the other screen. And I'm going to clear just to make sure I get the right one. I'm going to expand out, run in DAX query. Now, this added a couple more things, right? That it gets a little bit deeper, but because it's adding, if I took the totals off, it would pretty much be the exact same query that I just wrote. This roll up add subtotal is what's doing the totaling on the row. But you could see that it has the product color and our total net price. It just named it total net price. Power BI also puts this statement in as a second statement, which is a top N. So it only brings back so many rows at a time. And then it understands its windowing. And then its evaluate is that variable, and it puts in the order by for it. So it gives a little bit more on the syntax, but yes, you can keep going through it, and learn. You definitely come in and use this to learn. Like, go back, take the total off. Here, we could do that real quick. There is a couple other things I want to get to.
And Jack asked the question, and does this work? All this work in the creator gets saved somewhere?
Yeah, that's what I do want to get to. So let's.
Okay.
But if I came back and I took this total off,
Mm-hmm.
and I reproduced the DAX query, like I said, it would look very close to this summarized columns. It would just have that primary window in.
Mm-hmm.
The other one that I would recommend learning is, we've already kind of talked about variables, right? So we're gonna produce a variable var, and I'm gonna give it some type of filter criteria. Let's give it filter, since we're doing color. Let's do it filter color. You're going to see this function used by Power BI quite a bit, treat as. And so you have an expression here, and what I tend to use is a lot of hard-coded values in my testing, right? So I have to give it, this expression has to return a table. So I'm going to just give it one value in the table right now for silver. Right, so that's a one row, one column table with the value silver in it. And I'm going to make it to treat that as the product color. Okay. So this is now producing a filter table for me, because treat as returns a table, gives the data lineage for this value to be for product color. And I could add this in here, add my variable in, format my DAX to make sure it's all valid. And now when I run this, I only get the row for silver. So we could see exactly, and if you put a slicer on that page, and again, build the DAX query, you're going to get something very, very close to this type of setup.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. But wait, there's more. So, but let's address Jack's question real quick, because I know we're starting to get bumped up against time. I'm going to save this data set and come back over here and open up. I do have this saved as a project file, so we could see what it produces. You could save it as a PBIX as well. But under the dataset folder, when you do it as a project file, you get this folder, DAX queries. If we go into that, there's the 4 queries I have in the model. I could open these with a text editor, Visual Studio Code, whatever. I could look at them, right? So to me, what this starts setting up, and what I've seen other people start talking about, we'll see who does it first. I have some suspicions on who will get to this first. But what you could do is write test cases as DAX statements and store them as files within your PBIP. Put that into your Git repo. Use that within your CI/CD pipeline to run a series of tests every time that you commit to the model, right? And I'm not the first one to think of it. I know other people have already started thinking about this. But even if you don't take it to the CI/CD level, think about it for even a single person. You're writing your own data sets, right? And you want to test it. right? Some people will write a page that they don't intend anybody to see and just keep putting a lot of visuals on that page, which is good, but then you forget to hide it, or some other type of thing. If you write those visuals and then save those DAX queries, you always have them there, and it's a very simple way to go through and execute it. Now you could open these in DAX Studio as well, right? So they'll transfer over to that because they're just DAX or tabular editor. So, Jack, I hope that answers your question. Yeah, they're available right here. Let me see. Let me just go ahead and open with DAX Studio real quick. Where's that going to pop up?
Hold on.
I'm not going to connect, but just to come up.
Wait! There's more! Hang on to your seat, baby! Cause this one's a screamer!
Yeah, see, so here's the same file. Now it's just in DAX Studio. I'm not connected to a model or anything. But there's one more super cool, and I know
We're pushed
covered
up on
this.
time.
I know, but I got to do this one, right?
Okay.
Over off of the view here. Hopefully I could expand this. I could come in and I have this menu item for quick queries. So I could pick the table and it'll write me a DAX query that will show the top 100 rows. But it's this show column statistics that is wonderful. Or define all measures in this table, or define all measures in this model, right? So if you're trying to test all your measures, you want to write something extremely quickly, just come over here and click on it. And I think you get a little different context, right? So if I pick just a column, show data preview, it's going to write me a query that's the distinct values for the available date. And you see I have a blank value in here, right? But this quick query, show column statistics. Look at it wrote 263 lines of DAX code for me. Come in here, look through what they're doing. What this is it's taking a look at the product table. And for every column on this product table, let me move this up, make this a little bit bigger. Right? It's showing me the table name, the column name, what the count is, what the distinct values are, the null count, the min, the max, the mean. If I page over, I think there's even more. The mean, the standard deviation, zeros, right? All these statistics around what's inside of the data that you have, right? So we kind of have that. We have some of that when we're doing work with data in Power Query, right? But we may have other things that have occurred at the end of Power Query or whatever that we brought into our model, and we want to look at it here. This generates a set of standard statistics. And if you wanted to modify what you had here, just come, have it generate the basis for you and come in and add what else you want. So.
Oh, that is just awesome.
Yeah.
I love that is fantastic. And you just right-clicked on the product and it gave you a set query tip.
Show column statistics right here.
Gosh dang, that was worth the live stream in and of itself. So that is fantastic, Kevin.
Hopefully everybody stayed to the end to see that.
That's what we do. We go out with a bang.
See, I did practice.
Well done. Well done. All right. Well, thank you guys all so much for joining us today. Kevin and I both really appreciate that you take time out of your day to join us on Fridays.
Yes.
I don't know for Kevin, but it's my favorite part of the week. How about you, Kevin?
Oh, I love it. I think about this all week long. So I love it too.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys all so very much for joining us. You guys have a great week. We will see you, or I'll see you next Friday. Kevin, you're out, right?
I'm out. I gotta go out of town for just a little bit. So
fair enough. I'll be here next Friday. Maybe I'll have a guest presenter. We'll do it together. We'll figure something out. So you guys have a great day. Peace.
Peace.
Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.